Welcome to this introductory webinar about the DigitalHealth.London Evidence Generation Bootcamp. The Bootcamp is a program designed to support evidence generation by digital health SMEs like yourself. It's based on several years' experience with the Generator program, which is part of the DigitalHealth.London Accelerator. And through those years, we have developed a number of key components which will be integral to the bootcamp. One of those is expert continuing input from an NHS navigator dedicated to you and the other companies and your evidence generation plans. Second is a series of highly interactive workshops with recognized experts. The third is one-to-one sessions where in an intensive hour-long session, you have an opportunity to discuss your evidence generation plans. And perhaps most important of all, the opportunity which we can offer to make contact with a wide range of experts from a whole series of organizations interested and able to support evidence generation. The Bootcamp is a 12-week program with a series of 5 workshops and a whole set of self-directed learning resources which you'll be able to use. The commitment which you will need to make in order to get the most out of this program is probably going to be in the region of 3 to 4 hours per week for the duration of the program, and you'll be fully supported in doing this. In the past, we have worked over the years with more than 40 companies to facilitate evidence generation collaborations with a whole range of universities and NIHR and other organizations. We have run a series of webinars. In fact, we've run 3 webinar series looking at the challenges and the solutions to those challenges of evidence generation for digital health. And we have got an enormous amount of feedback and support, not only from the companies that we've worked with, but also from all of the organizations which now constitute a really quite extensive network from which you'll be able to benefit if you subscribe to the program. The application process is open at the moment and will close at midnight on the 25th of September. As you will probably have seen, there's an online application form which you will need to fill in. Applications are going to be judged, first of all, in terms of eligibility, but then this is a competitive application process. And so the more you can write about your motivation for getting engaged in the program, how you think you're going to be able to use it, and how relevant your particular application is to the NHS, the more likely you are to be shortlisted and selected in the end for the program. When you go online, you'll see that in the application process, there are actually 2 forms to fill in. One is the main application form, and the other is a funding eligibility form. Please do be sure to look at both of those and fill them in as appropriate. We're fortunate to be joined by 2 co-founders of digital health SMEs. One is Max Kirsten, who's the co-founder of Regimen, and the other is Anne Don Bosco, who's the co-founder of Canopy. And we're going to have the opportunity to hear from them about their experiences, both in developing their products more generally, but also quite specifically about the challenges of evidence generation and how the accelerator and generator programs have been of help to them.
I'm Anne's one of the co-founders of Canopy. So what we've done is basically create a product which can prevent and address the symptoms of perinatal mood disorders. So the official figures are that 20% of new mothers struggle with postnatal depression. However, when we ask mums anonymously, it's 70% that say that they struggle. And actually the resources in this country are really geared towards the most severe 5%, which means that lots of people get missed and don't get any evidence-based treatment at all. So what we've created is basically an app which a mum can download. It's also available to other parents. And they fill in a short survey to tell us who they are and what they're struggling with. So whether that's low mood, anxiety, things like relationships, breastfeeding, and so on. And we use that to create a 12-day, 12-minute program, which they can engage with in their own time. And it's using behavioral techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, and compassion focused therapy. And then in the app, we've also got things like stories from other parents and advice on common challenges. And our idea is basically for it to be a universal support system. So it's something that can be given to every single new parent in the same way they might take a prenatal vitamin or folic acid. So that's a little bit about Canopy. And then I can tell you a little bit more about our evidence generation. So
thanks, Anne. Yeah, do please. Let me
yeah.
just quickly ask you, is the idea with Canopy to go direct to consumers, to mothers and families, or to go to clinicians and commissioners, or both?
It was predominantly to go to clinicians. So we've got a B2B2C model, so direct going through the health system. So it's really important that the user appreciates it and finds it valuable. But predominantly our customer is actually the health system.
And you were going to tell us, I think, something before I rudely interrupted you about
No.
your evidence generation journey and how you found the challenges that you had to meet with that.
Yeah, definitely. So we really cared a lot about evidence because we knew it was important to getting the product right. And so we did quite a lot of different things. So we did a survey with 100 mums to like understand, how they found the experience of becoming a new parent, if they got the right support, like where we should kind of fit, like whether it should be an app and so on. We also did quite a lot of academic research and interviews with different people. So that was really, really helpful. And we kind of used evidence along the journey to kind of make decisions. I think that for us, like the thing that was most helpful about the Digital Health London program was really that kind of external perspective, because even though we'd done a lot of this research, it was about the framing and just thinking in terms of like, I feel like when you're a startup, you've got this level of maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome and a little bit of kind of, is this enough for these different stakeholders? And I think that was what was really helpful. So helping to think about what we've done, how we communicated that, how we framed that, some of the more technical language around like what we should be talking about with relation to it. And also, for example, like I think at the time I was thinking that actually like a pilot and real world evidence was what we needed, but really had no idea in terms of the numbers of people that we needed for that, like how we needed to go about it, like who we needed to engage. And so again, like the program was really great in terms of like helping us to understand like different ways in which we could approach that, given where we were as a company, what relationships we had, the resource we had. So I think the personalization of it was also really, really helpful, because having a navigator as well as other people in the team who are incredibly helpful was just really useful as a kind of sounding board and advisory mechanism to kind of say, yeah, it sounds like you've done really well in the academic research element and in the user research, but perhaps you could build on the, the real world evidence, getting some more health professional input and so on. So that was incredibly helpful for us.
And you mentioned the navigator, who is a key figure in the bootcamp program too. What did you find most helpful about the input you got from the navigator? And indeed, what other things in the program really helped you to crystallize what it was that you were supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think it was amazing having a navigator, because I think both having someone who understood the company and took the time to kind of, understand like exactly where we were in terms of what we needed, like our particular pain points was really, really useful in terms of that direction. Whereas I think sometimes when it feels like you do training programs because they feel so holistic and kind of, generic maybe is the word, it's kind of you're trying to figure it out for yourself rather than to really get that bespoke advice about what's useful and what's not. So that was incredibly useful. I think useful in the sense of becoming that sounding board, helping us to work through particular problems, introducing us to the right people. So, making connections within the NHS and more broadly around kind of evidence generation and advice. There were also other particular members of the team, including Vaish, who was really helpful, again, as just like a sounding board for helping to work through particular problems, helping us to kind of say, oh, you're thinking about it this way, actually, that sounds like you're struggling with that. Have you thought about it doing it in this other way? Which was really helpful for us to kind of be creative in terms of solving the particular problems that we were struggling with.
And last question from me, I think at this point is, the course is quite intensive, the bootcamp course, and there is a cost associated with it for most people. What value would you attach to the kind of input that you got when you were on the program in terms of your sort of business case and product development?
Yeah, I think incredibly helpful. I think what was helpful about it is going into it, I guess it was earlier this year, we were at the point of probably not having many connections, like not really knowing like how we should frame our data. And it's taken us towards, we've now been reviewed by Orca and got a score of 86%, which we're really proud of. And the program has been really helpful for that. We've also managed to land a pilot with Family Hub, which is where we kind of want to go. So it's been incredibly helpful in terms of the framing, and also being able to communicate things like our ROI, which is obviously important, and the framing of the particular elements of this is what health professionals are thinking about and what they care about, and that's how you should be framing your solution, rather than what we might think is important, if that makes sense. So yeah, incredibly valuable.
I can tell maybe just in a couple of sentences what we're doing and why evidence is relevant for us. So Regimen is a company that is passionate about men's health, men's holistic health and well-being. It's inspired by my personal journey. I'm 35. Over a decade ago, so in my early 20s, I was struggling with a veno-occlusive dysfunction, or a venous leak. It's a type of erectile dysfunction that you can conceptualize like a bathtub without a plug. And pills didn't work for me because they increased the blood inflow. I had to go through, I did injections, had to go through surgery twice. Nothing worked, and fortunately, I'm stubborn enough I was researching on my own and working with incredible doctors on a recovery program for my erection that worked. So now, 10 to 15 years later, I'm happy with my intimate health.
Fascinating product, and thanks very much indeed for sharing the information about it. It's really interesting development. Tell us a little bit about the study that you ended up doing or designing with support from Imperial.
So we've worked with the self-care unit of Imperial College London, sending out questionnaires to the general public and also to practitioners that help us even more to understand and also show the need for self-care and the lack of awareness around men's intimate health and personal health care. We've published that, and to be honest, that was a big step for us. I mean, we've published a bunch of evidence, including around our specific product, but that was kind of like showing that the need in the general healthcare system in the UK is there for just more knowledge and around solutions, how to maintain and improve health in general, and also intimate health.
And does that feed into your business case, having that evidence? Because that's
absolutely. So I think we literally started with a very narrow view on erections, right? We had one indicator and we tried to improve that. And then, I mean, at some point over the course of the program, we understood we're building much more than just an erectile dysfunction. And I think our vision expanded a bit from we're focusing on penises to focusing on holistic health for a population that usually is pretty bad at managing their health. And that was really important for us to understand, first of all, that practitioners really struggle with that, and that it seems easier for them to focus on something concrete, erectile dysfunction, but also that there's an actual need in the system to go beyond something like intimate health.
That's very interesting. So, I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that the evidence generation that you embarked on, that you've been doing not only was going to be useful in terms of clinicians and patients and commissioners, but actually it informed your product development directly.
Everything informs the product, exactly. So again, we went through a year-long process with the accelerator, starting with, I remember how we presented, we can improve an erection, here's a graph, right? And then it got more and more complex, starting with taking a cardiologist as an advisor, and really focusing on the root causes. I mean, we were focusing on the root causes in the product before, but focusing our vision and all the our communication in different directions towards, we can actually, we are already doing much more, and we can tell you that by focusing on intimate health, we can all together achieve a lot more that we all want to achieve, and that was only possible because we learned what really matters.
And what about your view of the value? Because you must have invested a lot of time and effort into the program and the evidence generation. People thinking about signing up for the bootcamp are going to be thinking the same thing. This is going to take quite a lot of my time. It may take quite a lot of my money. What's your view about the value of this in terms of what it did for you in regimen?
Yeah, so I personally think people have to start collecting data as early as possible before. So if there's no data, it's going to be difficult to just discuss it with someone, right? But like as soon as the question is, how can we apply the data? And probably what data do we need beyond maybe like this one thing? Is that even valuable, that what we're thinking about? That's, I think, the point where we really benefited from people that we would have otherwise not met, and ultimately have to do the work, right? It's really difficult to say, yeah, you're going to benefit from that, because that's not how it works usually. People have to really use the network. I think that's the key aspect, because what you're offering is resources to people otherwise would probably not respond, and you have to work on your hypotheses, probably together with your navigator, and then go to these experts and practitioners and scientists and just check if they're true or not. And that's, I think, the actual value of a program like that you have access that you would otherwise not have. That's a shortcut, right? And that's, I think, and that's why it's really important that these companies invest the time and not just sign up and pay a little bit of money and boom, all your problems are solved. It's much more, and that's probably what really everybody has to think about before signing up.
That's really helpful. I think both of what you both just said is really helpful. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have found the introductory recorded webinar useful, and very much hope that you'll seriously consider applying for the course. Remember, please, that the closing date for applications isn't far away. It's the 25th of September, and that's an absolute deadline. Please go online and check the FAQs if you need any more information, and do follow us on Twitter. And good luck with your application process. We would look forward to welcoming you to the bootcamp starting on the 24th of October.